just mentioning before uh, with Rebecca being pregnant, my wife is pregnant as well. One of the extra difficulties that she's having is she's having pelvic separation, as she had this with the previous pregnancy. That basically her pelvis is trying to separate earlier than is necessary.
Mhm.
And she's like 22, 23 weeks pregnant at this
Okay.
point. But so it's painful. It's one of those where it's much more of a comfort thing.
Mhm.
Thankfully, it's very uncomfortable, but she's going to be okay. But we were just talking about that, of how the female pelvis, obviously through childbirth, has to do all sorts of crazy things
Yes.
that a male pelvis doesn't have to do. So the actual structure, like when we die, our bones, you'll be able to see that, like, oh, that was a woman, that's a male. And I have no idea how we got to the point where that's controversial to say that, but it's just a biological reality. So to your point, where we're making not just some silly gestures of, like, I know pretty much all hospitals now, it's like, what sex were you born as or identified as, or I don't know, whatever
Yes.
non
Assigned at birth.
assigned at birth, there you go, which I'm sure you love that as being a pregnant woman
Yeah.
getting to answer those things. Um, that's silly. I've always thought that was dumb,
Yes.
but at least the maybe the argument would be, well, we're still saying sex is a static thing, so we're going to gender identity, but the sex is still biological. Well, your example you gave, we're showing that we're not going to stay there. We're
Yes.
going to keep going, and
Right.
people's lives are legitimately at risk, no matter how minimal they might say it is. Even
Yes.
if it's one person, that is one person for no reason,
Right.
for no good reason. You chose to do that.
And progressives have been really open about what their goals are for a while, I think. You would often hear them talk about dismantling or disrupting norms. I remember hearing that from Alexandria Ocasio Cortez a lot. And I think for a while, I know I used to hear it and think, what does that even mean? This is stupid. I don't know what that means. Just hand wave it away. But the reality is, this is what it means. So, what it means is anything that is normal. So, the existence of men and women, two plus two equals four, adults and children, a man and a woman meet, get married, have kids. These are all norms that, in many cases, have been around in our society for 300,000 years since the dawn of humanity. And for some reason, they wish to dismantle it or disrupt it because they believe that every single category, categorizing you as a man, as a woman, as black, as white, as an adult, as a child, that these are oppressive categories. And we are liberated from these oppressive categories by basically getting rid of them. And I think this is not only is this insane, what's the purpose of it? Who's suggesting this? Why? Where are you getting that this is somehow liberating? Pretending that men and women don't exist, how is that liberating for anybody? And I think conservatives and anyone who's anti woke or normal, who likes the way we exist in society now, needs to understand this, and they need to start asking questions and putting them on the defensive, because we are the vast majority, and not just vast majority, but vast, vast, vast majority. People in other countries, they like the way normal society is as well. And you see in Russia and China, huge countries, they don't like this woke stuff, and they're actually making laws to stop it from hitting their shores.
Mm.
So the vast majority of all humans want to live the way we've all been living since the beginning of time. These progressives, they need to be put on the defensive and explain why. Why exactly do we have to disrupt normal things? Explain to us why, because I don't see the point of it, and I certainly don't see how that liberates anybody.
Mm. That's a really good discussion point there of, um, that liberty, individual freedom. I think this is a point where a lot of conservatives can get tripped up on
Yes.
because we're the side like, yeah, individual rights. We've we want liberty and justice for all. Like we really get that patriotic bent going,
Right.
and we go back into it, and that's why I like your piece there of putting them on the defensive and by not doing some of the silly things that show up on some of these protests. Like I think over the weekend there was that like I don't remember even what it was, but those Nazis that were lined up and protesting something like
Right.
we've seen those things time and time again. You can make with that what you will, but seems fishy. um,
Right.
and so it's not about that. It's about asking questions. Like what when you say liberty, what do you mean? Like
Exactly.
ask questions, get definitions, and you'll soon be able to tell some of the good faith actors out there from just the complete brainwashed, whatever you want to
Right.
call them. The good faith actors might look back and like, yeah, I'm not sure. That is a little strange. Let me get back to you. Or,
Exactly.
just are actually trying. That's somebody you can sit down and have a conversation with.
Right.
I've had people on Twitter that have accused me of, um, you know, my kids are going to grow up and hate me and, uh, like you're unfit to be a counselor, blah, blah, blah. Just these lobbed darts that they're throwing. Um, Honestly, for me, and this is me, you guys don't have to do this, but for me, my tactic is ignore, see if it goes away, and this like 99.9% of the times it goes away. They're just some anonymous loser that wants to in internet points. Then I move on.
Right.
Other people might be a little bit quicker on that block button, which that's fine too. But what you don't want to do is those random people that aren't in the fray at all to let that stuff get to you because that's all nonsense. Don't don't talk to those people if there's no good faith. But if they're actually sitting down and we're engaging, yeah, you actually can change minds in those situations. But you got to ask the questions and you got to sit down and talk.
Right. And you actually learn a lot. And sometimes, and I know this is bad, and there, a lot of people say there's really no value in this, and engaging with people who are fully indoctrinated into the progressive ideology. You might not be able to change their mind, but you learn a lot. You kind of
Yeah.
understand, what exactly do you believe? Why do you believe it? What are your responses to me bringing up scientific facts, or so forth? And I do think there's value. I've learned a lot in engaging with some crazy people online. You kind of see, and you also see, which is interesting, patterns, and you can tell you're just repeating what you heard,
Yeah.
which I think is really telling, that people are just, they're just regurgitating what they're told to say, what their friends or their teachers and so forth are told to say. And we need to use that as a tool, given that it's the same argument. You can
Mhm.
come back, it's almost like you're arguing with different people, but it's always the same.
Yeah.
And I think conservatives need to remember that and start utilizing that, good, especially as we come up on campaigns.